Hello, I'm Kathleen Carlson. Today I wanted to talk for a few minutes about the experience of having a guru. So I had a guru in my life from probably age 25 to 35, and I lived in a spiritual community, so everything there was either approved or planned or organized by the woman. It was a woman who was a guru there. And I no longer have a guru. She doesn't happen to be alive anymore, though I had withdrawn from the organization, not in an animosity kind of way. I have a great relationship with that organization to this day, but from active participation well before she passed on. I would say it was a great experience on the one hand, and there are great reasons why that experience ended. So the positive things about it is there is some blessing to structure. At that point in my life, I was in my 20s, as I mentioned, and I was really recovering. I was recovering from life. I wasn't recovering from alcohol or drug abuse. That just didn't happen to be an issue for me. But I had gone through some traumatic experiences. I had sent people to jail. I had been raped. I had been in a sexual abuse situation with a priest. My parents had separated for a period and then later got back together, but that's always a difficult experience for a family. And when I arrived there at the spiritual community, I was in great appreciation for the structure. It was safety. There were tons of rules. All the basic things. There was no drinking, no drugs. You couldn't date someone. It was a monastic community, so you couldn't date someone. You couldn't even speak to someone of the opposite sex for more than a prescribed amount of time. So there was no developing a romantic relationship, which for me was fantastic. I needed that protection. I needed to be in a place where I wasn't worried about having to turn away someone who was attracted to me, or having, starting something that you think is a friendship and it turns into something else, and it's awkward if both people don't want it to go that direction. It was good in that sense. Then on the other side, when you are on a spiritual path, I think just about every spiritual path, you are trying to develop your own inner Christ, your own inner Buddha, your own inner God, your strength, your own character and your virtues. And you ironically give up some of your individuality in order to live in a community. We basically had no money, had no time off. You were discouraged really from spending a lot of time with friends or developing relationships outside of your relationship to the leader of the community and or your relationship to God. It was an interesting conundrum. Now what I found is that my relationship with God is really outpictured in my relationship with other people, especially the places where I and others are not being our best selves, are not expressing the highest God within us. That really comes out in your relationships with other people. The closer the relationship, then the more challenging that can be. It was like living in a cave, like they're purported to do if you're a monk in India, for example. It was like doing that in the midst of a community, because you really, for the most part, were staying to yourself. There was no physical contact, holding hands, hugging other people. Even if you were married, those things were not done in public because it would be considered a burden on those who were living a celibate or monastic life. So there was very little physical contact among people in the community. You were giving up certain rights. You didn't have a choice about what, quote, career you were pursuing while you were there. The skills that you had were taken into consideration, but if you were needed to work on a farm, or you were needed to work in the kitchen, which is where I was, or you were needed to work in editing books, but you really wanted to work on the farm, whatever. You had to be where you were needed. So there were fundamental things like that about people's lives that were determined by someone else. So as I said, it was a good experience for me, during that time. And in the end, the community that I was in went through a major transformation, was no longer an intentional community, but simply became more of a religious and educational outreach organization with a small headquarters. The whole idea of creating a self-sustaining community, was no longer a priority for the organization. At that point, I did leave, and that was a big shock to me because I did think that I would be there for the remainder of my life. And then suddenly, I was back out in the world. I understand the difficulty of going from that, which is a protected environment. That is one of the benefits of it. And then going back out, and now you're earning a living. You have to make all these decisions, and the rules are gone. And now you have to set the rules for yourself or determine, how will I live? How will my spouse live? Are we going to make the same decisions so that we can stay together and go forwards, outside of that structure that we had before? It is a challenging thing to be in that situation for an extended period of time and then reorient your life afterwards. I think when I left, I felt like my challenge at that time was to find my own way. And even though I recognize if you have a true guru, someone who actually understands the spiritual progress of your soul and can assist you in that, that person can save you a lot of time, eons of development. But I literally made the conscious decision when I left that if it's going to take me eons, that's okay. I have to do it myself. Like, I had just reached a point where I had to find my way on my own. So that's why I don't have a guru now. But certainly I do see the blessings that can come from that situation, and everybody has the right to decide if that is the right kind of relationship that they want to have in their life or not.